I think. All right. Looks like we are live. Because that's how I do it live. If I do it live, then I don't have to worry about checking out and not posting it, right? If I go live, then I'm right here and it's good to go. We're going to hit some big topics today. You're going to want to stick around for the whole thing. I am going to be talking the election, not Biden, Trump, and all the typical talking points that you're hearing out there right now, but a little bit of a libertarian perspective on what in the world's going on out there regarding the upcoming election. I'm going to be talking about the systemic racism conversation, and the fact of the matter is that what we're doing, what we're seeing across the entire nation right now, is absolutely built on a lie. And we have to talk about this, and we have to be able to have honest conversations about what is actually happening in this country, because the lies that the media are telling are tearing us apart. And I, as a libertarian, I'm not coming at this from a right-wing perspective. I am coming at this from what I think is a relatively unbiased place. I could be wrong, but I believe I'm coming from an unbiased place. At least I don't have a left-right dog in the fight. And I'm watching this, and I try and be as objective and take it in as I possibly can. I've talked in past videos about my views on the Jacob Blake shooting. I've talked about Kyle Rittenhouse. I've talked about, police brutality. I've talked about all these things that I think I do a good job of trying to stay as neutral as I possibly can. But hey, if you guys are out there watching this, please go ahead and hit me up. Let me know that I'm in the wrong. Let me know that I'm swaying politically too far in one direction or the other. So if you do have questions or you have comments as I go through this little bit here, as we go through the topics, please drop them in the chat. I'll definitely bring those up at the end if there are some questions in there that need to be answered. So please be active in the chat. If I have more than a couple of viewers, that'd be great. And also, I hope you like the new digs. Did a little remodeling. I think this looks a little better. I think this is a better look for the show, right? I can call it the show now. I've been on for a couple of weeks at the same time every day. I'm starting to become kind of reliable. You guys can tune in every day at this time, and you know that I'm here. So let's get started. Let's get into this thing right away. And I've got a lot of information here, and I hope everything goes smooth with my presentations, but we'll see what happens. We're going to get started with the election. I want to talk about that, and I'm going to bring up some stories here, just kind of geez, I can't even talk, so no wonder I'm having struggles. Just as a reference to what I'm talking about here, because we're really seeing some pretty crooked stuff, man. Let me see what is going on here. I got a little bit of some issues with of course, I've always got issues with everything. Let's see here. There we go. Bear with me for a moment here. I'm going to get this all dialed in. I promise you. But we're talking about the election, and one of the things that blows my mind when you've heard it from Michelle Obama at the DNC, and you're going to hear it from other people, and the conversation is going to be that we are. Let's see here. Let's get rid of that. Sorry about that. You're going to hear that we cannot vote third party. Don't vote third party. It's a waste of your vote. All these different things. And the reason you're going to hear that is because they're afraid. Obviously, what they want is to make sure that they are not losing votes. They don't want to lose votes to the third party because, oh my God, we'll lose if we, whatever. If a third party gets in, don't give your votes to the third party because this election is far too important for that. Blah, 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 blah. So that's always what you hear from them when it comes to the election. The problem with that is your candidate sucks. That's why you're going to lose. You're not going to lose because you're losing votes to the third party. I am having trouble bringing up my second display, and I do apologize for that. I wanted to bring a story up here to share with you folks, but I'm having a little trouble grabbing it, and I don't know why that is. So bear with me. I'm still working it out the kinks here. Should have had this all ready to go. Shame on me. But the bottom line is that there's this huge percentage of voters who are just not going out. They're not going to come out and vote. And the reason for that is because the candidates aren't inspiring. So I'm going to read from this story, even though I cannot bring it up. Essentially, half Americans don't vote. The Reverend Sonia Riggins Furlow, a 63-year-old pastor at Butler Memorial Baptist Church, is worrying a lot about turnout these days, not in her pews, but at the polls. Voting trends in Grays Ferry neighborhood, a majority African-American area undergoing gentrification, make her fear that Election Day 2008, when people were lined up around the block to get into polling sites, might have been an aberration, and that when it matters most this November, few will show up. She saw that happen in 2016 when the same voting locations were eerily quiet. Why were those locations eerily quiet, and why were people so motivated to go and vote in 2016? Well, it's pretty simple to figure out, actually. Barack Obama was an incredibly inspiring candidate, and he motivated people to go out and vote. People wanted to go vote for Barack Obama. People do not want to vote for Joe Biden. Democrats are not excited about going and voting for Joe Biden. And so Democrats are panicking. Democrats are worried. When Michelle Obama talks about not wasting a vote on a third-party candidate at the DNC, then you know they've got issues. You know they're concerned because they know that their candidate isn't popular, and they know that Democrat turnout's going to be low. The other part of that is you have to recognize that the black vote going into this election was swaying towards Trump. And what I'm not saying that Trump was going to win the majority of black votes, not by any stretch of the imagination. But what was happening was that you were seeing 24 to 30, somewhere in the 25 to 30% of black voters saying that they were going to vote for Donald Trump. That's it. That is fundamentally the end of the Democrat Party. They absolutely have to have the black vote in order to win. They cannot win an election without it. Everybody knows it. So when you look at those two things, you're going to have a lot of concern about the election turnout. You're going to have a lot of concern about that. And you're going to talk about third-party candidates. So there's another story here. And I'm going to pause here just for a second while I try and get this function working. I'm trying to get my other screen up here, and I'm having trouble with it. It's driving me crazy. Let's see here. Let's hit that. Let's see. Don't know what's going on. That's very strange. Can't get it to come up. That is blowing up my whole friggin' thing here. Gosh darn it. Gosh darn it, I said. How about that? Anyway, let's shoot over here. So, Voice of Reason, hashtag Let Her Speak. This is a HartfordSentinel.com piece on August 8, 2020. Libertarians in every state across the country gathered in cities to protest the exclusion of Libertarian Party presidential candidate Jo Jorgensen from the media in the presidential debates. Due to COVID-19, restrictions and worries across the country, the form of protest was used as a vehicular caravan. I participated in that, decorated my wife's Mustang with the Joe20.com and Let Her Speak and all that stuff. So we got in the caravan, we're driving. Geez, now my camera's not working. I had nothing working today. This is not my day today, is it? Let's get this thing out of here. Bottom line is, so we did the caravan. We're going around. The thing of it is posted on social media by the protesters using the hashtag Let Her Speak. The hashtag became one of the top trending Twitter hashtags that day, hitting at least as high as number 6 at one point during the day. So clearly there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of oh my goodness. There's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of people online talking about it. So in a Gallup poll in 2018, 57% of Americans said that the United States would benefit from the inclusion of a third party, yet the Commission on Presidential Debates, their sponsors, the media, and the courts continuously deny the American people the right to hear from more than two choices. This is a rigged election, folks. This is, if you want to know what a rigged election looks like, that's what a rigged election looks like. That is it. You can't deny that 57% of Americans would like to see a third-party candidate, and there are two third parties that are relatively strong in this country. The Libertarian Party is going to be on all 50 ballots this year. Jo Jorgensen, the Libertarian candidate, will be on the ballot in every state, and for some reason, they are completely ignoring that. They are completely eliminating her from contention. They're not allowing her into the debate. Now, here's the interesting thing. I wanted to show you this chart, but I'll just tell you what it says. The bottom line is that there are qualifying polls. All right, in order for a presidential candidate to get into an election, they have to qualify by hitting 15% in the polls. If they don't hit 15% in the polls, then they can't be in the. That's the rule, right? So no 15%, no debate. So there are 5 polls that they're going to use: ABC, CNN, NBC, Wall Street Journal, Fox News, and NPR. Not a single one of those polls is actually going to include Dr. Jorgensen or Hawkins Walker in the poll. They're not polling for these people. They're not asked. So you get the phone call, right, from ABC saying, who do you plan on voting for? They're going to say Donald Trump or Joe Biden. And that's it. Those are your options. And the other options simply say not polled. So you have to poll at 15% in order to get into the race. And they're not polling for these candidates. There's nothing more rigged than saying, all right, here's what you need to do to qualify to be in the debate. You have to qualify by polling and then not polling for those candidates. How can anybody think that that's okay? Nobody. Come on. This is ridiculous. If there's nothing, that's a rigged election. We know that there is nothing else. And this is absolutely fixed. The goal is to make sure that the two-party political system stays in power. That's it. That's why they do it. And so both presidential candidates, if you said that, let's just say you said you're Donald Trump or you're Joe Biden, you could easily say, look, we need to include these candidates in the election. They have to be involved. We cannot allow them to not be part of the process, right? If one of those candidates had the integrity, I guess I would say, to say that, then you would have inclusion of these people in the debates. And look at that. There we go. So there it is. This is from my Facebook page. These are the qualifying polls. Debate inclusion. It is impossible to obtain the necessary 15% if not given the chance. They're not even being given the chance to participate in the polling that they would need in order to participate. That's disgusting. That's what a rigged election looks like, folks. This is the illusion of choice that you're being given. And it's disgusting. So when we talk about a rigged election and we talk about half of Americans don't vote, period. Half of people do not vote. This is the story I was reading from earlier. Regarding people not voting from the Grace Ferry story. It's just terrible. So you're looking at two candidates. Both of them have absolutely no problem excluding the third-party candidates from the race. So it's an absolutely fixed rig. It's absolutely rigged, and it's terrible. And so when you listen to libertarians talk, sometimes I know that libertarians sometimes can get a little. We can get just a little bit. What would I say? We can get a little bit conspiratorial, right? Sometimes if you run into libertarians online, we can sound just a little bit conspiratorial. They're literally excluding us from the race based on the fact that you're not hitting 15% in the polls that we're not asking about. You always hear about the mainstream media is owned by these major corporations, and it's in their best interest to keep power in the hands of two political parties that both take money from the same people and both push the same consistent policies. And that is exactly what's going on in this country. And you have the Democrats and the Republicans. It seems like every year we're having this fight about the integrity of the elections. And we have to protect the integrity of the elections. And it's BS because at the end of the day, they don't care about voters. They don't care about disenfranchising voters. You're going to have 100 million plus people who aren't even going to bother showing up for the election because the two parties are working so hard to exclude third-party candidates from even participating. It's disgusting. So don't listen to you're going to have all these fights about mail-in voting and how important it is to protect the integrity of the race. You rest assured that these people do not care about protecting the integrity of any elections, because if they really cared about that, they would make sure that multiple voices were heard, that more people had a voice in this race, and they would try and bring as many people who are disenfranchised from voting back into the fold. And they're literally doing the exact same thing. They're literally making sure that anybody who doesn't believe in the two candidates who are running just doesn't have a place at the polls. And that's disgusting and that's terrible. And it really just shows you how disingenuous the two parties really are when it comes to talking about voters and the integrity of the election and all those things. It's absolute nonsense. We know it. We know that's the case. So that being said, this is where I lead into, or how I would lead into, I guess, the idea that, quite frankly, we're being manipulated by the media to believe something that is fundamentally untrue, and that is the myth of, I don't even know how to put this, systemic racism. I would put it as, you could call it the myth of police violence, and I don't know which one I want to start with. Is it police violence, or should I be talking about systemic racism? Either topic is up for grabs. We'll start with I think we'll start with systemic racism. I'm going to bring this up here. If I could get my stupid thing here to work, I will bring up a source here that I want you guys to take a look at. And let me see if I could do it this way. Bear with me for a moment while I try and bring this thing up. I want to capture the window. Let's kill that. Add that. We're bringing up the display here in just a sec, if you bear with me. We're going to bring that up. Okay. It's just not letting me do it. I don't know why. I don't know what I did to break this thing again. I thought I really had my technology dialed in here, but apparently not. And this isn't going to have quite the impact I wanted to have. I'm going to tell you something. I thought I had probably my best freaking deal today all set up. So I really thought we were going to have this thing dialed in pretty well today. So I'm going to go with do this a different way. We're going to discard that. We're going to add this. We're going to go bear with video capture, window capture. Okay, there we go. So let me bring this up for you. First, so when we talk about systemic racism, we talk about a lot of different things. And one of those things is income. And so I want to bring a chart up here first. And this is where we're going to get started. Okay. Get that here. I'm going to bring this up. I'm just going to blow this thing up. I'm just going to take up my whole screen because I can't figure out how to make this work otherwise. So let's see here. Man, I really thought I had this figured out. I do apologize. I hope you stick with me because it's actually some good information we're going to be going over here. So let me bring up this screen real quick. So this is Black family income. And this is where I kind of wanted to get started. So during the 1990s, African-American income grew tremendously. By 2000, about 44% of African-American households had an annual income of $50,000 or more compared to just 22% in 1969. However, due to the Great Recession, which lasted from December 2007 to June 2009, that number dropped to just 38%, by 2010, reversing much of these gains. The most dramatic change during the Great Recession was the percentage of Black households making under $15,000. Now, there's some things that need to be taken into consideration here, but let's just take a look at some stuff here. First, let's take a look at family type. Median income for all families. Black families, $49,549, and all families, $73,891. That's the headline number. If you're going to talk about income discrepancies in the United States, that's the number you're going to get, right? They're going to take the entire thing and they're going to lump it all together as if it's one thing, but it's not. When you look at a married couple for Black families and for all families, you look at the median income for a married couple, $74,878, and for all families, $88,315. And keep in mind that number is skewed up. Whites alone don't make that high of a median family income. That includes Asians who make significantly more, actually, than white families. So that's number skewed up a little. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try and say, well, there's obviously an income discrepancy here and we need to address some of those issues as to why that income discrepancy exists. But I don't think anybody's going to look at 45% of Black families, or 45% of Blacks are in married couples represent 45% of the Black population, and they have a median income of $74,878. I don't think that you could point at that and say that these are people who are being oppressed. Here's where the problem comes into. When you look at all families, female households of a family, no spouse, single mothers, they make up 44.3% of Black families and only 18.9% of the rest. And look at the income discrepancy. It's not that large. It's a $5,000 annual income discrepancy. But you have 44% of Blacks in that category, in single family, single woman households. That's the problem. When you talk about this headline number, when you talk about this number and this huge discrepancy between the African American and the rest of the country in terms of what they're earning, it's because almost half of the population is way down here. If you move this up here, how much would that number change? If this represented 18, 19, 20% of the black population as opposed to 44%, this number would be a hell of a lot higher. This is dragging this down. Married black families do almost as well as the rest of the country is doing. That actually isn't correct. If you move that up there, wouldn't, this number is the one that would change. This headline number would change. If this was up here, then that number would change and it would close that gap significantly. The reason this is so low compared to the rest of the country is because this number is so high. That's what I was going for. And that's a serious issue. We have to talk about that. And we don't want to, and we want to ignore that as if it's not real, if it's not a thing. If we ignore it and don't talk about it, it will go away. So let's see here. We're going to take a look. This is from Brookings Institution. A close examination of wealth in the U.S. finds evidence of staggering racial disparities. At 171,000, the net worth of a typical white family is nearly 10 times greater than that of a black family. 17,150 in 2016. This is a realistic thing. This is an absolute result of the ability for white families to hand down generational wealth. But one of the things we have to keep in mind is that the left wants to pass, they're the ones who want the capital gains, and they want the, not the capital gains, but the estate tax and all these different things that would make taxation, that would make it more difficult, essentially, for African Americans to be able to hand down that kind of wealth to the next generation. So we have to keep an eye on that as well. We also have to keep in mind that the disparities, the $171,000 net worth of a typical white family, is that a typical white family? Or is that all white families? The question is where are the billionaires in this, right? We're the like, I think 400 white billionaires in this country or something like that. Is their net worth being counted there? Because I think that's an important thing to remember, is that there's a group of people at the top, right? Jeff Bezos' incredible wealth doesn't necessarily help me at all. Well, I'm not white to begin with, but it doesn't help the typical white family that Jeff Bezos is a multi-billionaire. That's not helping anybody, right? So let's not pretend that is necessarily 100% impactful. I think the income is the more important factor. Now, here's another and this is where I talk about systemic racism and the income inequality. And one of the things I brought up on another platform was that we had more economic growth. Black people had more economic growth and did a better job closing the income gap under Jim Crow than they have since. And that's an important thing to think about. So let's take a look here at, let me just bring this up real fast. I don't know if that's a little small. I don't know if you'll be able to read it. Let me see here. I don't know if I can read it. Let me blow that up. Yeah, okay. So let me take a look here. In 1939, a black man earned 44%, the ratio, this is what we're talking about, is ratios. The black man earned about 44% of what a white man earned. 10 years later, in 59, there was a little bit of a dip. By 1969, that number had closed to 63%. This is right around the time of the Civil Rights Act. All this was gained, this like 19% gain in income, that all happened while Jim Crow was still a thing. And then you look at what happened since, and the progress essentially stopped. And I don't know what the ratio is today. I couldn't find updated numbers for the ratios today. But we look at what happened under Jim Crow, and we look at where that kind of flattened out and died, and it kind of destroys the idea that the biggest issue is systemic racism when you look at the fact that the most of the progress was made under Jim Crow. And I don't think anybody's going to argue that the country was much more racist in the Jim Crow era than it is today. So let me see. I can't get out of this screen now. Man, I'm having all kinds of issues. All right. Come on. So anyway, that was just one of the things I wanted to point out, is that the progress that was made under Jim Crow makes it look very difficult to justify the fact that we think that systemic racism is one of the major issues facing the black community today. I don't believe that to be true. And I think the numbers kind of support that. There we go. So Anyway, that's just one of the things I wanted to talk about. I got a lot going on here. I'm having major technology issues. I'm probably going to end up having to cut this thing shorter than I wanted to, which really stinks because I had a really great show put together for today, and I'm having all these issues. That's really kind of crushing me. Gosh darn it. Anyway, I had the police statistics all up here. They're gone. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, I guess. Man, I'm super frustrated. I apologize. This won't happen again. I do not know why my system is not functioning properly and I can't get all this data over to you, but me just rattling off these numbers without you being able to see them on the screen is not going to be very entertaining for you. So I've got to get this fixed so I can do this right. So I do apologize. I don't know what in the world is going on. I don't even know if my stream is even still running. Is my stream even still up? What in the world is going on here? So I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to be back tomorrow at this same time, and I will definitely be much better prepared. And hopefully we get this thing functioning properly. I apologize for the technology issues. I'm glad I don't have 100 million subscribers quite yet, because this would be very embarrassing for me if that were the case. Let me go over to my live and see if I'm actually doing the deal here. Let's see. All right, so this one's up. And I'll solve the problem. No, probably not. Hey, I will be back tomorrow. Hey, Tori, thanks for giving me the no worries. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys. I hope you come back tomorrow. Again, I will go over the police brutality and all that stuff. I had all those all those statistics loaded into the machine here, and they just vanished, that whole bit. And believe me, it took me a lot of time to get that data put together. So I get this put together tomorrow. I'm going to get this, I'll be back up. We're going to go over the police brutality numbers. We're going to talk about the election a little bit more. And we're also going to go over some of the stuff that's been going on in Portland. So I hope you will be back tomorrow. I promise things will be much smoother. And we will see you folks then. Thanks very much and have a good night.